Hey there funnel builders, Mike here from sellyourservice.co.uk, and today I want to talk to you about why you are struggling to double or even just increase your revenue per year through your funnel business. I think one of the big misconceptions that a lot of funnel businesses have is that they need to work harder. So I don't doubt that you are hardworking, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, you want customers. I don't doubt any of that. I don't doubt that you're trying to call people up and sell to them. But the big problem that you're going to face is that to double your revenue, you can't use the same thinking that you use to get yourself to this current level. I think a lot of people feel that revenue is kind of like a set of steps. Now, I know I often use the analogy of building steps up a mountain in order to be able to kind of focus on the right things within your business. But revenue is not necessarily something that is incremental in the same way that you can just repeat the same task. Yes, if you have a product and you sell one product for $1,000 or you sell 10 products for $1,000, you've 10x'd your revenue there, but that's selling one product, and it's typically the effort that we put into selling one of those products or building one of those products or services that gets us there. Revenue instead is kind of like getting halfway up the stairs and then realizing that the next kind of level requires you to climb a ladder or climb up one of those sort of inflatable fun things that you have at swimming pools and lakes and things. It actually requires a completely different mindset shift, and I can prove that to you, but luckily there is actually a solution to this as well, to doubling your revenue even within a year. In the book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, he talks about this concept called 10X. And I think a lot of people think, all right, well, I'll just 10X my output then, or I'll 10X whatever I'm getting. And I've just got to think that instead of wanting $100,000 a year, I actually need to have $1 million a year. And it's not as simple as that. Instead, what you have to do, and I've found this, is if you want to double your revenue, if you want to increase something, you have to think to yourself that I need to 10x that in order to put in the same effort and push yourself onto a different level. It's kind of like starting again, but from a completely different mindset. Yes, you're halfway up, the set of staircase, but you're going to have to start thinking in a completely different way to get to that next level. And I can prove this to you. So let's say that this year, your revenue for your funnel business is $50,000. And you can do this exercise, along with me. What did you have to do to get to that revenue number there? Let's say you had 5 customers at, let's say you had 10 customers at $5,000. And let's say that over a period of a year, you wrote 25 blog posts and you attended 5 industry events maybe. And if you look at all the hours you put in, maybe it was 40 hours. And then let's add a few other bits and pieces. Let's say you created 2 new products. And what I mean by this is products or services, whatever you want to call them, 2 new things that you could sell to your customers. Maybe you start doing email marketing and care plans. But you've got all of this stuff that you've done in a year, and that's essentially amounted to you having 50 grand. You've also got your current mindset, your own personal development. What have you been working on? What is it that you've been focusing on? Maybe you've read 10 books. And maybe you realize that you get up at 6 a.m. And yeah, you're working 40 hours, probably more if we're being honest, right? And you wake up at 6 a.m. And all of this has contributed and combined into you earning $50,000 this year. But you know that you need to make $100,000. So tell me what it is you think that you would have to do in order to reach $100,000. When we look at it like this, it's obvious we can't just double this number. I can't just go, cool, well instead I'll work on 20 customers for $5,000. I'll write 50 blog posts. I'll do 10 events. I'll work 80 hours a week. Already you can see that this doesn't stack up. I'll create 4 new products. My mindset, I'll work on it even further. I'll perhaps learn more about an abundance mindset. I'll read 20 books. And in this time, I'm going to start getting up at 5 a.m. Here's what happens. That's what we instinctively think that we have to do. That's what we believe that we should be doing as funnel builders, is essentially doubling whatever it is that we've done in order to reach this number. Now, hopefully you can see here just how ludicrous that is to just go, well, I'll just double my workload. Just double my workload and then I'll get to $100,000. It doesn't make sense. I mean, that there and that there are unsustainable consistently. 20 books a year, at the moment I read far more than that, but that's because I'm about to go through this 10x process with you. Is it just as simple as getting 20 customers? You know, just doubling everything? You think, well, I'll just create 4 new products. Think how much hard work you had to go through to create 2 new products and even release them to the marketplace. Creating 4 in the space of a year and finding more customers and reading more and writing more and going to new events and working more hours per week and continuing to work on your mindset physically doesn't make sense. One of the reasons for this is that I don't doubt that this 50,000, you gave 100% effort. Now, even if you had days where you think, you know, I could have worked harder, and that often tricks us into thinking, well, because I think I could have worked harder, I could have given more. Maybe you actually think over the year you only gave 85%, that even adding another 15% will help you get closer to that. And that's not what happens. This is actually quite a well-known phenomenon, and I can demonstrate it to you. What we have is the difference between kind of the effort that we put in and the income that we generate per year. Okay, so let's say that this is 10 grand per year, 20 grand per year, 30 grand per year, 40 grand per year, and 50 grand per year, right? And let's say there's 60 plus here. And ultimately what we want to do is get over here. The amount of effort that we put in, so this is 0% to 100%. This is effort, okay? This is the amount of work we put in. We think that it basically goes up like that, right? And once we reach a certain point, our income continues to grow because we're at 100% effort. Aside from the fact that 100% effort is impossible, okay, it's not sustainable, don't worry about that. If this is not a video on how to work harder every day. I don't doubt that you do work hard. Yes, some days are lazier than others, some days are easier than others, less motivated, more motivated, disciplined, whatever. We're not here to talk about that. What I'm here to show you is that using all of this stuff here, and let's say all of this goes into our 100%. If we did all of this, it goes into our 100%. There is a cap, physically a cap to the amount of income that we can earn. And eventually, as we come back, it begins to drop off. So our income drops off, even though we're still putting in 100%. And it might, over here, still feel like we're actually putting in 100%, even though the yield is much, much less. We think that just by increasing the amount of effort that we can increase our revenue, and that's not what happens. Instead, we have to completely flip the way that we're going to start thinking. And the way that we do that is, rather than thinking I want to double my revenue, we actually need to put it through a 10x filter. Okay, so I'm going to add a 0 onto this, and I'm going to say 500,000. What does your funnel business need to do? And remember, I'm not telling you to earn 500,000. I'm not telling you that's the only sum of money that's going to make sense. This is an exercise in opening up your mind into how to run a more efficient and better leveraged business. All right, 500,000. What are you going to have to do to build a $500,000 marketing funnel business? Well, shit, it sure as hell is not going to be 100 $5,000 customers, is it? So one of our options is to increase our price and instead work with 10 $50,000 customers. Okay? Writing blog content, I have no idea whether that's going to affect, this is part of your strategy, but instead, why not just think about, well, rather than churning out content, we actually become a media publisher. And we publish other people's content, experts from around the world. We don't produce it, we promote it. Events, 5 events. Instead, does a $500,000 business attend events, or do they hold events? They hold or host events. This is what we mean by 10x. And I'll go into this in a minute as well, because what you'll find is this probably ends up doubling your revenue. The actual figure in the end is closer to your initial goal, and I'll explain why that happens. Again, 2 new products. What if it's you don't have 2 new products, you have 5 new distributors? You keep the same number of products, you actually increase the channels that you go out through, okay? We're trying to think about, and remember, we're not setting this in stone. You don't have to build a $500,000, $500,000 business, okay? You don't have to build that. I understand that some of these numbers are scary. You don't have to build that. 40 hours a week, do you know what? That's not productive. It's also not sustainable. Let's push that down to 25. We're going to continue waking up at 6 a.m, continue reading books, continue on our mindset. This here looks like a business that we were worth $500,000. Here's what happens. The 10x rule kind of has a similarity, what we call the 4x problem. So if I want 100,000, it's going to require 4 times the time. It's going to cost me, it's going to take 4 times the cost. It's going to take 4 times the effort. And it will yield me a quarter of the results that I expect. Now that actually ends up to be about $125,000, but just for the sake of this argument, what we find is that all of this of a $500,000 business goes through this kind of 4x problem. So we have to 10x to get our initial figure, and all the effort tends to go through this 4x filter. If you've ever worked on any project, try applying the 4x rule to a project that you've done, either with your kids or a customer project. It usually takes 4 times as long, costs 4 times as much, takes 4 times the effort, so the number of people, the number of man hours, and usually yields a quarter of the result. This here is a really useful model for us. When anyone gives us projections, I will usually times it by 4 in terms of the time scale. So 3 months becomes a year. That might sound insane, but go back over some of your older projects and tell me that that's not what happens. That a project that you think will take a quarter ends up taking a year. It will cost 4 times as much. That $10,000 project ends up costing $40,000. I guarantee you it happens. It takes 4 times the effort. You think, oh my God, we should be done by now. This is ridiculous. And yields a quarter of the result. All of that effort typically goes through this filter and creates this. So you have to start thinking in terms of 10x just to double your revenue. Another thing that tends to happen is all these different, what we call filters. So you're going to put in 10, right? You're going to put in 10 out of 10, 100%. You're going to put 10 units of effort or you in there. As soon as that gets split out towards other people, now that's customers, staff, outsourcers, no matter how much you love them, no matter how much you expect from them, no matter how good they are or hardworking or intelligent or kind, they will usually yield 1 for every 10 that you put in. So for every 10 you put in, you'll usually get 1 out of someone. But we need to get 1 out of the universe, so out of the world. You know, we need to find 1 customer. So instead, you have to give 100 in order to get people to give 10 in order for the world to give you 1. These kind of ratios are how successful businesses grow to the scale that they are, because they realize that it's not necessarily about just increasing your effort. We can't take our current thinking and just double it. Instead, we have to look at, you know, what does a business 10 times this size produce, and start thinking around these routes rather than just doubling our current revenue. It's not about selling to more customers. It's not about always just increasing your price or finding more people. You've got to start thinking bigger. You've got to start 10xing your thinking in order to achieve, frankly, you know, pretty mediocre goal. And even if you do go over, so what? So you're telling me that by rethinking what it is that you do and you end up reaching, you know, 200,000, what, you're going to be annoyed with that? You only want to stick to 100,000? No. Usually, because around 65 to 70% of the time, we'll start giving up and ramping down when we're at that target. So when we're at the target of 65 to 75% of the goal, we start ramping down. You have to be thinking in terms of 10x. Thanks very much, guys. If you've read the 10x rule by Grant Cardone, let me know in the comments below. If this sounds familiar, let me know in the comments if I've touched a nerve or if this is something that you think that you've experienced. I'm really enjoying kind of doing these videos. If you've got any questions or anything, just let me know in the comments and I'll get around to them. Thanks very much, guys. I'm Mike from sellyourservice.co.uk. Keep building those funnels.